Okay, this artwork is called Pumpkin by Yayoi Kusama, and it's currently it's owned by the University of Tokyo, and that's where it hangs. So looking at the 5 elements of colour, line, pattern, repetition and shape, I'm first going to look at this idea of colour. We can see that the artist has got what she seems to use as what we call the infinity net pattern, which she repeats in her artwork, and this is in a red and white that we can see here, and it kind of is it's dividing the negative space around the pumpkins in half. Down here we've still got this kind of circular infinity net where she joins everything together to make these net shapes down the bottom, and this is using this kind of green. Here you can see she's got 5 shapes. Still haven't finished with colour, but I'm just going to identify these different shapes, and each one of them is a different colour. Some of them have the similar colours on the stalk and the body of the shape, but they have a contrasting polka dot pattern. So if I have a look here, it's got the red shape, colour of the pumpkin, and then inside it's got the blue dots. Here it's blue and it's got the kind of green, mint green, teal green colour. The stalk is a different colour, it's lighter. It contrasts quite a lot if we look here between the red and the green. There's the warm colour of the red and the cool colour of the green here. Here again we've got a pink and orangey kind of colour which contrasts again against this colour, the bluey teal colour of the stalk, which again, the blue teal colour contrasts against the red background. We can see here underneath, if we talk about tone and colour, that there are less, I'm going to change the colour here so you can see it a bit better, there are less dots in under here, which gives a feeling of shadow underneath. That gives our shapes a feeling of form, like they're coming out against us. So does the overlapping, where this pumpkin here looks like he's at the back, and then this one looks like next, and then this pumpkin, the dominant shape here is right in the foreground. That means he's at the front. So's this one. They share the foreground. We can see that because this part is not chopped off, whereas this part here is behind that pumpkin. Okay, I'm going to erase some of this now so we can see a bit better. Back again. So we've talked a little bit about colour. There's a range of colours in this composition that we can see. And also the artist places cool colours and warm colours next to each other. We've talked a little bit about pattern and repetition. We can see there's a bit of repetition. There's definitely pattern. We can see the pattern in the pumpkins here all throughout. The pattern is the same, and then there's also repetition of the actual pumpkin shape. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This shape up here, this kind of net, looks like a more geometric version of the same thing down here. If we look at other paintings of Kusama's and other sculptures actually, the pumpkin shape is repeated over her work. This infinity net is a common motif in her paintings, the use of flat colour. So here you can see the red, it doesn't have any light or dark in it. It is just a flat colour, and the same with these. It's flat colour with paint on top. This one here, she painted the green background, and then like you saw before with these nets, she paints this net pattern over with black. If we have a look at the pattern in here, we've got a contrast up here. It's almost kind of a third almost of the composition is geometric. Down here we've got the rounded parts of the pumpkin in the middle, and then down the bottom you can see these are more rounded shapes as well. They're a bit more irregular, they're not as perfect as the dots on the pumpkin, so there's a bit of a variety there in the type of shape. If I draw a line through the middle of this stalk here, you can see that actually it's almost like the artist has divided it into 3 parts. So let's have a look. We can see here that this is one section, and then here this is a different section where the bulk is the shapes of the pumpkin, and then here is another section, it's darker. it's got more black in it than any of the other areas. So it's almost like the artist has divided it into sections. And then if we follow this pumpkin right down the middle, almost the line, we have like what we call a leading line. So if we look at line in this composition, it's the last thing I'm going to talk about. We can see that there's kind of two, we've talked about leading lines here, which are kind of the almost imaginary visual lines, but then there's also these sharp angular lines. They almost look like cubes. You can see the cubes in there. And then they've got this kind of organic, almost cell-like lines. So she's used different types of line. She's used also this imaginary line. We can see it's kind of a line, but it's not joined together because it's these dots. So that we can see that she's used both the definite lines and a contrast between them. Imaginary lines of leading, so we can follow the composition where she wants us to look. And then also the sharp angular lines, and then the more organic cell kind of lines.